Piercing is a technique of punching and sawing holes into a design in a sheet metal. The first step is to create a design on a piece of paper or your sketchbook. I like to trace part of the sheet metal I'm working with on the paper to create a border for me to draw within. I also like to use templates of different size shapes. It's really important that all of your shapes are at least 2 millimeters apart from each other and from the outer rim of the design. The next step is to actually use a piece of tracing paper, put it over your design, and redraw onto the tracing paper. Sometimes using a piece of tape to hold the tracing paper down is a good way to secure your tracing paper. When you get your saw frame, you're going to be using 4/0 saw blades, which is the size that is most commonly used for different thicknesses of metal. It's not too thick and it's not too thin. For piercing, I like to use a 22 gauge sheet metal, which also is the right thickness to be able to do what you want with it after you're done. I like to first measure the distance of the tool's knobs with the saw blade. Once you find it's at the right distance, by adjusting it here, you're ready to load the saw blade. You always have to look at the blade and make sure that the teeth are facing down and towards you. Once you've got that, you're going to push the blade all the way to the bottom of the first knob and tighten tightly. And now the top is loose. You have to push with one hand against the bench to create tension and tighten the top. You can feel it prick you when your finger moves up, and the sound is like an instrument. Now your blade is loaded. First, you're going to cut the tracing paper to the shape of the metal by using a regular scissor. And now we're going to glue the paper onto the metal with just regular stick glue. It's important to glue it evenly and all the way to the corner of the paper. And it's also important not to cut out the shape of your design, but just cut out the square that fits on the metal. In order to pierce metal, you need your design all glued on, a dapping block, which is a metal block here, a center punch, which is this tool here, and a rawhide hammer. You place the sheet metal on the metal block, and you use the center punch to dap inside the design. Remember, the design is 2 millimeters away from the next shape. It's also really important to wear goggles whenever you're sawing and there's any metal flying around the room. The next thing I'm going to do is take a number 2 file and file the outside to become the perfect circle that I wanted. Long motions away from you, filing away. And flick of the wrist to get that round shape. You need the key. Put the key in here. Close. And tighten. And that's where the teeth should land. Okay, now we're ready to pierce. We have our holes drilled, the shape on the outside is cut out. And now you're going to take your saw frame, open the top knob here, so this is free, and thread the design facing up onto the saw blade. Pushing it all the way to the bottom, pushing against the desk, and tightening. You're going to saw out the shape, staying on the outside of the black line, and turning the metal as you saw, not the blade. The longer your strokes and the slower you go, the straighter your line will be. When you're done with that shape, you take it out and you continue by going to the next shape. And here you've learned piercing.